the snake issue, where you had unintended consequences. Yeah, in India, where they said,
Oh, right.
yeah, we'll give you if you give us a head of a snake, we'll pay you $100.
So we're literally breeding snakes.
Yeah, so people started breeding snakes and it made the snake problem worse.
Like self-fulfilled itself.
Yeah.
Backwards or whatever.
So I think that the scoring system is pretty good, but I also do think that fighters should be encouraged to not try and win a decision, but instead try to win by one of these cases. So, anyone have any questions before we go on like rules?
So like, what's like the split between someone winning by the judges and like the knockout or one of those other ones? Like how often does it go the full 3 rounds or 5?
It's probably around 50-50. So, and then within that 50% of not going to the judges, it's like 75% knockouts and 25% submissions. Any other questions?
What's up with like the 10-7 score? I'm just like,
I don't know. I'm guessing that it's to have big numbers, but
yeah, I guess it's like, hey, you lost 2-1, like that's something dumb. You lost 45 to 39, like, okay, those numbers seem like real numbers
Yeah.
now.
pretty much.
I can get behind those numbers.
And then so there's but in modern mixed martial arts, obviously it's mixed, so there's a ton of different martial arts that are going into it. So the number one of that is going to be boxing. So in your basic stand-up game, which is you're just trying to punch each other, is almost always going to be based on boxing. And if you don't know boxing, the only thing that you can do is throw punches. You're not allowed to kick or like take it to the ground or do anything else. So it's very restricted, but it also makes, if you are good enough at this, you're just really good at only striking. And so the striking base for MMA is going to be based on boxing. And then so you have Muay Thai. So Muay Thai is also known in Thailand as the martial art of 8 limbs. And so by 8 limbs, they mean that you can also use your elbows, your knees, and your shins, in addition to your arms and legs. So you can see here the guy here is throwing a knee, presumably a very painful knee. Yeah. So this is Muay Thai, is also known as just Thai kickboxing, and it's very famous for something what's called the clinch. And so the clinch is where you're in very, very close range with someone else. So like basically chest to chest. They were probably in clinch right before you do this. So in Muay Thai, you're always going to be either very far away from the person or very close to them. Whereas in boxing, you're pretty much always going to be at a medium distance away. And the reason for this is that with the addition of kicks and knees and elbows, the most devastating things that are going to be thrown are going to be at short range. So if you're attacking, you want to be short range. And if you're defending with kicks to create space, you're going to be very far range. And in the middle is kind of the area that no one really wants to touch. Because obviously, like middle range is where the punches are, and punches are not going to be as powerful as knees or elbows. And so the game of knees and elbows and the clinch is going to come from Muay Thai. And then you have Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which we talked about a little bit about before with the history. And so Jiu-Jitsu is only submissions, only submission grappling. There's no punches, no knees, no kicking, no striking at all. Instead, you start from standing and your opponent stays like over there, and then you just try to put them in a position of either choke or you put them into a position where you can break their limb at any time. And so this has become very dominant in the world of MMA just because the ground game is so well evolved. So you have some people who are not really strikers, but they have such good ground game that they can actually like take any striker to the ground and just completely envelop them in their grappling. And so one way to do this is with judo. And so judo is actually the club here. or I guess boxing is too, but judo is the Japanese art of, if you're standing, you have someone right there, you cannot throw strikes. The entire goal is to take them and then just throw them onto their back on the ground. And that's how you win. So, judo has a little bit of the ground game in which like you try to get submissions, but not nearly as much as jiu-jitsu. And it has a huge emphasis on starting from your feet and then throwing people to the ground. And you'll notice that they're wearing a gi, which is kind of looks like pajamas, but is really just a very thick layer of clothing, and that is so that you can just have grips. And obviously, in jiu-jitsu you have both gi and no gi versions, but in MMA there is obviously not a gi, so you're going to have to adapt your strategies a little bit for that. Wrestling is a little bit more applicable to MMA just because you're not wearing a gi and you kind of have to deal with not being able to have some completely solid grips. And then wrestling, the entire point is to pin your opponent, where you have both of their shoulders on the ground at one time and in full control. If you do that, you win. And so again, very good for at just taking people to the ground and controlling them once they are. So does anyone have any questions on disciplines? On like what they are or how they're used?
Why do we do that?
What do you why?
Well, it seems like we just should out of each other. I mean, like, I would probably enjoy boxing if I did it, but I don't see why we it just, I definitely appreciate Bruce Lee's technique though, like, because I see now, like, they're very disparate, whereas wrestling is all, like, more body-based, boxing is all, like, fighting, like, arm-based, and then when it's more, like, kicking-based, kickboxing versus, kicking-based. So I see that Bruce Lee tries to move around a lot between, I guess, the arts. I don't know. So, did Bruce Lee end up doing all of the different arts, or, like, did you just pick one, or?
So Bruce Lee was like had his own art, which was loosely based on like Wing Chun and Kung Fu, and then he kind of like adapted things from basically whatever school that he went to when he was traveling. So he never like really got into grappling at all. He was basically just a striker.
Wrestling's relatively new, isn't it? Or, I mean, there's sumo wrestling, I think, is like an ancient thing, but
Yeah, I mean like Roman wrestling
okay.
was in ancient Roman times, or I guess they call it Greco-Roman wrestling, so it's all the way back to ancient Greece as well. So wrestling is probably actually the oldest of everything. And then so, we move on to strategies. So you can imagine that some people are going to be better at like one of these things than other people, and they want to take full advantage of that. So these are the four main ways of approaching a fight. And so the first one is sprawl and brawl. And so these are people who are very, very skilled at just the striking and staying on their feet. And so the brawl refers to just brawling. I'm sure you know what that means. And sprawling is actually what is called when you do a takedown defense. So if someone goes for like a wrestling double leg or a judo throw, the main defense against that is to just like base your legs out opposite and then throw your weight forward so that they're not able to get you to the ground. And then after that, you just kind of, you punish them for trying to take down, and then you keep on your standby. And so a lot of people do this mainly because it's very, very effective. And a lot of people more people have bases in things like boxing and Muay Thai than they do in grappling. And then so we have ground and pound. So ground and pound mainly favors people who are very good at controlling their opponent on the ground. So you'll see a lot of wrestlers do ground and pound. And what that means is that you get them to the ground by doing a takedown, and then you just hold them in that position where you're on top, and you just hit them from there. So a lot of people think that this is like really a savage way of fighting and not like very precise at all. But just being able to have the level of control over someone else like that is its own art in and of itself. And then you have submission seeking, and so submission seeking is where it's exactly what it sounds like. You're trying to win by submission, so your main priority is to take your opponent to the ground and then get a submission on them with your superior grappling ability. And so this requires extremely good takedowns and extremely good ground game. And then clinch fighting. Clinch fighting is essentially where it's not used really much at all because it is not that effective in getting technical knockouts or knockouts in general, but it's mainly used by the Muay Thai people where you're like right up in the clinch next to them, and then you just try to eventually grind into a slightly better position to either get a takedown or to put them into a position off balance where you can throw a significant strike. And so I would have individual slides in this one, but I couldn't really find appropriate images for each of them because they're kind of strategies and not really just one thing. Anyone have questions on strategies?
So you said the most common is the small ball.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be a strength fight. Wouldn't it? I feel like it's wrestling is mostly a strength fight.
Wrestling it is. With like boxing is not really. It's more of a timing and like being able to react quickly. And then submission seeking is certainly not just